Kia ora, no ma haramai, no ma haramai, no ma haramai. Kia ora. Before we kick things off, before we introduce ourselves, welcome to this Kōrero with the wonderful Grant Pritchard. I'm Sui Hana here, but like everything, before we start, we're going to start with karakia. Inoi tātai. Kia ora. Hauora mai runga, hauora mai raro, hauora mai roto, hauora mai waho. Hauora te pūtaki o tēnei kaupapa, kia pūrangi aho mātou I te wānanga me te kōrero. Tēnei te titi ake te pauhauora ki te pūtaki o tēnei wānanga, tuturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Tae ki e.
Tuia te rangi, tuia te whenua, tuia te pauheringa tangata o te motu, kei taku kēngi kini tu heitia pototou te wherowhero te tuawhitu. Pai mārire kia ko otira kia tātou. E mihi ana kia tātou kua whakakotahi mai ki te kaupapa o te Kōrero with the wonderful Grant Pritchard I te karanga o te rā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa, ko Tui Hana Ohi ahau. I am the founder, the Woo EO of Woo Wellbeing, and this week we are celebrating Mental Health Awareness Week, and we've had a kōrero every day. So Monday we had the wonderful Tim Mertens, Tuesday we had Jolene Prophet and Feti Maipi, last night we had Nina Keitani Tinero, and today we've got a very dear friend, Mr. Grant Pritchard. No more haramai, welcome Grant. Please
Kia ora.
introduce yourself.
Kia ora, kia ora. Thank you so much, Tui Hana. I just it's really good that you've organised something every day this week, and so I've just really enjoyed diving into those kōreros and just really listening and learning. So thank you for doing that. Kia ora all. My name's Grant Pritchard, and I am an in-house lawyer at Spark New Zealand, and just a passionate mental health advocate. And so I love all things mental health. We've all got mental health, and so my passion and my purpose outside of work, and sometimes at work, is really just to do what I can to lift the conversation, to help us all accept that we have a role to play to create a more mentally healthy future for New Zealand. And so everything that I can do to stand behind that, I totally will. So thank you for having me, and I really look forward to this kōrero with you.
Yeah, we've had a number of conversations, and we have to admit that just prior to coming online, there were a few. I was busy eating a banana, and my son had made me a hash brown, and Grant had to shave some, little something he'd missed.
I had to go and do some touch-ups because I don't know how to shave properly. So good. This is really real, isn't it?
It is. There was a wonderful guy by the name of Mr. G. He's an artist, and he's going to be speaking at the Huiora conference or summit that's coming up. And he said on Monday, he's a mental health advocate in the Bay of Plenty. He lives in Tauranga. And he was saying, it's great that we have these weeks, that we have Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, and we have Mental Health Awareness Week. But the reality or the truth is that every day, like you've said, we are dealing with mental health and well-being. And I think that with the onset of COVID, that's even been highlighted even further as we've, all endured a pivot of some kind. We've become teachers. I know I've become a bit of an amazing dumpling maker, but we've, and then I'm naturally an extrovert, but I found myself getting too comfortable with being at home, if that makes sense, and kind of perhaps isolating myself a bit too much, which I'm like, oh, that's not very good. So yeah, I think that, you and I, Grant, both incredibly passionate about this space, and we're about to have the first ever Headfit Mental Health and Wellbeing Awards. But I suppose,
not many. So that's a relatively new thing. I might just say something very quickly on that, just so a lot of people won't know about it. So it's been on my heart for a few years now to do a bit of something more for New Zealand when it comes to celebrating and recognising and lifting up people and teams and workplaces. So we're doing really good stuff when it comes to mental well-being for their people, and so that's why we've launched the Headfit Awards this year in the middle of the global pandemic. We're hoping that the ceremony will be happening on the 16th of November. We've got about 30 tickets left. That's it. It's absolutely just jammed. So, and we had to get more seating, and so the venue's now at capacity, assuming we can hold the event. So watch this space. I'm one of those people that's definitely looking forward to level 2 and hoping we get there by the beginning of November. But
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah. I think we all wish that for Auckland, definitely. So, Grant, what was it that, I mean, we both actually, you and I've had conversations because both of us have neurodiverse children, which is, a motivation for both of us. But how have you, what was that kind of moment for you when you thought this is actually something that I really want to give space and time to, is this kaupapa of mental health and wellbeing?
I think each of us has got our own why for
Mm,
wanting to live our own lives in a way that strengthens and supports better mental health, but also why we might want to do something outside of ourselves to make a positive difference. And I think if we reflect on that long enough, everyone's got their why. And so my why, I've got loved ones that I support with mental health conditions and neurodiversity, and I had a couple of experiences with losing people to suicide, and so just obviously this isn't a suicide prevention kōrero, but
no.
that's part of the discussion, and so you can't avoid that. And so if you are listening to today and you are in a tough spot, it's okay for you to just jump off. So this live stream will be here waiting for you when you get back, when you feel comfortable. It's okay to just jump off if you need some space, and invest in you, right? So um, you know caring and kōrero, which is so much of this year's Mental Health Awareness Week, it really is important. And it's not important in a sense that let's make another job for you. Let's lift you up the priority list a little bit. I've distracted myself with the Mental Health Awareness Week
Yeah.
discussion, but for me, I just want to I've lost a couple of people. One when I was at high school, and I just didn't really know what to do with that, and so I just
Yeah.
put that in a box. I think, and what I just encourage who's listening is like thinking about your life and your experiences. What experiences have you had with mental ill health yourself, with people you care about who or have worked with, for example, workmates, friends, and family, and who's in your world right now? And are you struggling with yourself? What's your strategies and skills and things you do to stay well? Because we've all got that. So I just, for me, I got into it because I was personally affected by it, and so I see my job as now trying to get people to care before they have to be kicked in the guts by a severe mental distress situation in their own world or losing somebody to suicide. And I think that there is such a powerful, positive opportunity for us. And from my perspective, the workplace is a, a really big part of that. There's so much
Mm,
that
mm,
workplaces can do. And that's not to say
mm.
you'd have to turn up to work and be like, you guys need to make me well now. But I think
Yes.
it's a real exchange there of like the people and the culture and the individuals and the teams and the big picture, organization, that there is a real powerful opportunity for us to do more and to be really intentional about creating mentally healthy spaces at work.
And I think that, to be honest, I found it really challenging and yeah, because I'm a really emotive person and I cry very easily when others are affected by things. Um, and to, like to listen to Tim on Monday and then Nina Kay last night, who
Mm,
have both at some point in their lives um, attempted suicide. That was just like, and now I look at them and I'm just like, wow, the to navigate your way through that and around that, and and the defining moments that made them step out of that space of perhaps sitting in a space that wasn't too healthy, like in terms of depression, and then moving through it, I think is really admirable. So I want to just mahi to you too, Grant, because I know you've encountered some personal circumstances that have influenced your passion and your love for this space. So yeah, and I just
mm.
I think when you talked about, the wards were sitting on my heart, I think that, when you work in this space of mental health and well-being, or even in the space of well-being, that you have to there has to be a level of empathy, there has to be a
Yeah,
level of heart, right? And of
yep.
giving back and serving others. What's your feelings? What's your thoughts?
I think that's right. I think sometimes in this world we have such a relentless life
Yeah,
that we can be. It sort of seems weird to say this, but it can be, and I'm not trying to knock anyone, but we can be so busy that we don't have time to be kind. We
yeah.
don't have time to even be kind to ourselves, let
Mhm,
alone to the
mhm,
people around us. And so that can create in us just a relentless task orientation. That
mm,
means that we're just on to the next thing, on to the next thing, and nobody's pausing and reflecting and looking up and around.
yeah,
Or even doing that kind of thing with themselves and doing a bit of a self check, right? And just to be really open, I've really struggled this lockdown. I've got a big busy house. It's been going on for quite a while. I've got quite a stressful role sometimes, and look, there's good stress and there's good pressure and there's bad stress and there's bad pressure, and so I think it's about recognizing that and being a bit kind to yourself, because this is I think because we've done this before last year, I think there could have been a bit of an expectation that, oh, yeah, ready to go again. Yep, you know what to do. And
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that you have to kind of let go of the need to just have things be just as they were, or be like, oh, this is totally normal, and I need to be able to do everything I normally do. You can't do that. So I think this has forced me to be a bit less perfectionistic, at least.
I think, I mean, I live in Kirikiriroa here in Hamilton, and have been blessed enough to only experience 2 lockdowns in that time, and probably, a total of like 9 weeks. But when I think about, I was actually just on a call to a friend before we came on, and I've got a really close group of friends in Auckland, and I'm really missing you all. And
Mm,
it's the uncertainty of when I will see you next. And that's kind of how it felt, when I with my family in Melbourne. I mean, I was really fortunate that when that bubble opened up, I took advantage and I went there. Man, yeah, I did, because all my immediate family are there, right? And to go back there, and so, our thoughts are with those around the world, including Tamaki, who have had to endure these lockdowns, and now, we face this reality of perhaps living with it, which is like, wow, I'm not quite sure how I feel or what that looks like. But it's caused us all, I think, to like have these moments of like really a lot of self-reflection,
yeah.
a lot of self-reflection. And and I just came off doing a workshop on wairua with a client, and one of the things I spoke about was, think of that place. Like if I was to ask you, Grant Pritchard, where's a place or space where you feel calm and incredible sense of belonging? Where's that place for Grant Pritchard?
In the water, in the water, on the mountain.
Yeah.
That's for
And
me.
so,
Like that's those moments sometimes through the year. I've just donated my annual snowboarding pass to Rupehu this year because of COVID, but because I haven't been able to go, we'd like scheduled a giant snowboarding trip, and then that just got destroyed by lockdown, and so that's been a bit rough. But when I'm up there, like when you're and everyone's got that thing they love doing, like it could be running,
mhm,
it could be swimming, it could
mhm,
be
mhm.
crocheting, whatever it is for you, that it gives you that, like, for me it's like it's you in the mountain,
Yeah.
and it's you in you know you in nature. It's really special, really healing.
Mm.
And I'm not sure anyone would describe snowboarding as a healing activity, but it's good for my soul. It's
I
good for
have a
myself.
partner that would describe it as healing. So what I
Okay.
reminded so what yeah, so what I reminded them was that, when you're not feeling so good, when you are being challenged, is to kind of remember that feeling that you have when you're in that place. And
Mm,
and then it kind of brings, like you automatically smiled just then. It brings a smile to your heart and a smile
yep.
to your face and just brings a smile, right? Oh, look, Tim's saying the same thing. It's healing for him as well. Um, Babe, gee, Grant, we weren't quite sure where this corridor was going today, but I feel like it's meant to be happening, so, what have you can I ask, because what have you found, um, incredibly difficult about this lockdown for you
Mm.
personally? Yeah. What's kind of been those things you just thought, oh,
I
yeah.
think a lot of it is, I mean, I was a close contact earlier on, so I had 2 weeks where I couldn't leave the property, and that wasn't too much fun. But lots of people have gone through that. And I kind of think of that a bit like a first world problem, but it was still pretty intense. Like
Yes.
sleeping on a couch, wearing a mask while you're at home, social distancing within your bubble is like a bit unrealistic, and so I found that a little bit full on. But even coming out of that, I think getting the balance right is something that I haven't just been able to go, oh, this is what I do, this is how I roll, um, this is what I do, and here's how I'll be okay during lockdown. I've had to actually stop every day, and sometimes like I'll have a day like yesterday. It was pretty challenging, and I'm like, it's 3 o'clock and I haven't had lunch. What am I doing? And it
Yeah.
just sometimes, it's pushing and pulling a little bit, but I think because we're now stuck on Zoom calls and Teams calls all day, you can kind of lose perspective a bit. It's a bit like being in a casino. I don't want to get us into a
Yes.
gambling discussion, right? But like you're just there and you're in front of the screen, and then it's like one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And so like getting up and getting out of there. I've got a workmate, Emma, and I hope she won't mind me telling this story because it's not really a huge story, but she's just been like literally every time we have a meeting, she's in a different room. And so she's up and about and she's sitting there and she's comfortable, or she's on the couch or she's on the deck or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, I need to do that. And so actually being a bit inspired by what other people are doing is
Yes.
good. But I think that the difficulty is maintaining the balance and maintaining the boundaries, because, your work has in a sense invaded your home world.
Yes.
And how much of a blessing is it to be able to work like that's
Yes.
awesome. That's awesome. Like I really feel for people. Like if you're a tattoo artist or a hairdresser or a chiropractor, like how's that working for you
Mhm.
in Tamaki Makaurau? And I think that I'm blessed to be able to work. I just need and it's on me. It's on me to try and keep those boundaries really healthy, and I don't always get it right. And so you could almost, at the end of the day, you could kind of reflect and be like, okay, out of 5, how did I do for today for striking the right balance? And it's been a roller coaster ride. I wouldn't say it's 5 out of 5 every day.
Thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability. I often find that when you are kind of seen as not a leader of a space, but somebody that inspires others in a space, that expectation on yourself to kind of live up to that can be challenging. It can be challenging.
Yeah,
S- Yeah,
yeah, and it's like
yeah.
those. It's like those. I mean, I'm not famous or anything, and that's a good thing. But
On
it's like the
LinkedIn.
TV presenters on LinkedIn. I'm a B grade personality, but like on like it's like the news presenters and stuff. I think it was that Judy Bailey was saying that like I think it was either Judy Bailey or Angela Dawdney. I can't remember, one of those iconic Kiwi anchors. They were like, if you were going to the supermarket, like shopping for toilet paper and stuff, and just going about your day, people would look at you, and because you were just normal and you weren't like this, ready, ready for my, where's, which camera I'm looking at, because they're not like switched on like that. They're just going and shopping and they're not smiling and they're not really, really engaged. And so people would be like thinking she wasn't okay and coming up and be like, are you okay, Judy? And I'm like, I sometimes feel like that. And I think it's okay to be really real. I mean,
Yes.
it's more important for someone like me to be honest. And so I actually sometimes I don't shock people, but I sometimes surprise people, I think, if they make the mistake of asking me how I am.
Yes.
Because I'll just be really honest about it and I'll be like, 6 out of 10. I'm struggling with this at the minute, but I'm grateful for that. So I'm just be like really real. I won't just be like going really negative. But sometimes people are like, they haven't started talking, they haven't started conversing with you yet when they say, "How are you?" And when you
Mm.
reply and you're actually sharing a bit of how you really are, which is that most important question we can ask each other, they're they're not in the mode of even listening to you because it's turned into that autoresponder of how are you?
Yes.
I'm fine. I'm well. I'm good. How are you? I'm fine. I'm well. I'm good. And then we start talking. So I think we do need to get out of that. And I think level 3, level 4, um, the lockdown situation, it's probably more important that we say, how are you really doing? What's life been like for you this week? Um, what are you finding hard? Like you can say how are you, but you have to. I think because we've got this ingrained um, back and forth of social
Mm,
politeness when we see someone, you do have to
mm.
change how you ask that question for people to be cued into the fact that you're really caring about how they're doing. Because otherwise, they can miss that and be like, I'm fine, I'm well, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah.
You
You
can
feel
almost
like
do it in your sleep.
you feel like just press play and
Yeah,
press play again. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I've already
yeah.
seen that movie and I didn't like it the first time.
Um, this whole Headfit Foundation
Mm.
that you're leading, the awards that you're leading out, um, you know, what was the motivation, the inspiration to kind of just go, okay, we need to put, what
I
what
think that,
was it?
thank you for asking. I think, look, the biggest thing for me is wanting to make a positive difference and to not
Mm,
and to find ways to connect people with new ideas and stuff that works. Because I
mm,
think that there's a real mindset in New Zealand of number 8 wire, and that's really good when we're out on the farm and we're on our own and we've got to do our own thing. We've got to be independent and rugged.
mm,
But what that means when it gets embedded into your culture as a country, which I actually think it is, like we've got the there's probably three things I could come up with, but just off the top of my head, the two things is tall poppy syndrome, um,
yes,
take a concrete
yes,
pill, and
yes,
number 8 wire. So that's
yes,
the Bermuda Triangle of things that aren't great for leadership, for sharing, for learning together, for having a sense of humility, for efficiency in changing how we talk about and address mental health at work. So everybody's just doing their own thing. Well, that's
mm,
that's that's been the case. I think things like the Rangai Wellbeing Collective, Hui Ora, on the 18th of November, all of those kinds of things are opportunities. You're kind of creating space for people to share what they're doing, what's worked, what's challenging them. Um, and so I love that. And so that for my with Headfit, I just want to try and inspire other workplaces to take action and just
yeah,
to be cool to just be like, okay, we can we don't need to have our act together. I'll say politely because there's no 5-second delay on here. We don't have to have our act together. We don't have to be perfect when it comes to mental health or well-being, but by golly, we're going to care about that topic. And it seems like a stupid thing to say, but we're going to do not nothing.
yeah,
And I think that's why, I mean, to get people to caring about mental health and well-being without having them to go through the ringer, I think is a good thing. And all of it starts from listening to your people, listening to yourself as well. I think if you're a leader in this space, like you trust your spidey senses.
yeah,
And in the workplace, to keep the Peter Parker Spider-Man theme going, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think, it's not just a responsibility, it's a huge opportunity for us in the workplace. Everyone's got a role to play. You as an individual, you and your whānau and your family groups, at church, in the community, um, in your sports team, in government, in primary care, in our schools, in our universities, and in our workplaces. And because that's where I live and breathe in the workplace,
yeah,
that's where my heart is. but that's
Yeah.
only part of the puzzle. And so that's
Mm.
why, I think there's not just one. You can't just Gandalf this and just kind of wave your wand and be like, mental ill health, you shall not pass. We actually
Mm.
have to all step up and to have a bit of agency and go, well, what can I do? Now, I'm not the CEO, but what could I do for me? What could I create in my team, and how can I contribute? So that's like the individual and the team and the organizational level, those can all really kind of interact with each other.
And,
And so I think that's where the power is bringing those together. It's like assembling the Avengers, where you
and
can
don't
really
just
get those things going.
yeah. And it's not just about doing it, to look good. It's actually about doing it because you care, because, like,
Mm,
I don't do it because the next person's doing it. Do it because it's the right thing to do. The right thing is to show a level of care. The right thing to
mm,
do is to remove the stigmas. The right thing to do is to allow people to have these conversations. The right thing to do is not to have bias, not to have judgment. That's the right thing to do, right?
mm,
I think we all struggle sometimes with that right thing to do. When we were talking with Feti the other evening,
mm,
I realized that I have this bias, this fear of saying hello to those people that are picking up butts from the gutter or from the pavement, that clearly have some challenges around mental health and well-being, but I'm
mm,
too afraid to say hello to. And the one thing he talked about, and this could be applied whether it's family or your workplace or wherever it may be, is that things have to be done with aroha,
yes.
you
Yeah.
know? And I think that, oh, well, I'm probably putting words into your mouth, but I really feel like Headfit Foundation and the Headfit Awards are about really bringing to the forefront, this Kōrero, this conversation, and blowing up this space so that everyone can actually contribute to it in some way, right?
And can just push past the number 8 wire situation where you're like, oh
Yes.
well, we'll just do it ourselves. You can be inspired, like um, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, right? And so, like, why not look at what your competitor's doing?
Mm.
Like, look at what so look at what your competitor's doing. Look at what your peers are doing, and just be inspired by them. Be like, well, like if this company that's just doing whatever it might be, what you might be in the seafood industry, you might be in like primary care, you might be in education, but you can see that someone else is doing something good. If they can do it, we might just be able to do something too. And you can learn from and be inspired by and shamelessly rip off the the stuff that's working for everyone else, right? Because then it's like you're gradually lifting, everyone's kind of coming up together.
Yeah, but because is it a case of ripping off, or is it a case of kotahitanga? Kotahitanga
Ripping off's
being
probably the wrong word.
yeah,
It's probably the wrong word. Yeah.
kotahitanga is about, all coming together
Yes. And being open
collectively.
about it, right?
Yeah, e harata
Nobody
katoa
wants
ki
a
toa taka.
secret mental
Yeah,
well-being program. Like
yeah,
it's so good. You're gonna love this, but it's like the 11 herbs and spices.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing. It's amazing, but we can't tell you about it.
What did you find doing the awards? And I know they're yet to be announced, but
Mm.
what have you found incredibly rewarding about hosting those awards? What have you found?
Oh, do you know, like for me, the generosity and the kindness that's been shown by everybody that's been, I shouldn't get emotional about that, should I? But it's obviously, I'll just always wear my heart on my sleeve. But I think
Mm,
every single person that we've talked to, every company, every organization has said, how can we help?
yeah,
Whether
yeah.
that's the venue, the entertainers, the MC, the sponsors, like literally everyone, the trophy production company who's based in Kōrero, awards, trophy and engraving experts, shameless plug for them. But like literally everybody has said, how can we help? This matters to us. So
Yeah.
that's been amazing. That like for me, it was just so surprising. I even had, sponsors coming back who said, big government agencies sometimes who said, we're sorry, we don't sponsor stuff like this. And I was like, that's cool. That's all good. And then they'd come back and said, actually, let's do it.
Wow.
So quite surprising. And then above all of that is just the stories. We have a highly independent judging panel full of independent experts. So including some people that you might know. And look, I I was so impressed by the judges giving of their time. That was massive. And the stories. The stories
Mm.
of these lives changed, teams transformed, people getting the help they need, workplaces being quite innovative and
Yes.
not just being like, oh, let's just tick the box, but actually like, what might incredible look like? Why don't we just try that? That sounds like a great idea. Let's experiment in a safe way. Let's just try that. And so that was just so heartening to see, and that's the stories that we want to share.
Yeah, it reminds me of a whakatauki actually. Ki te kotahi te kākā hō ka whati, ki te kapuia e kore e whati, which is if a reed stands alone, it can be broken, but if it is in a group, it cannot. And that was from Kingi Tāwhio. And it makes me think about, this, if collectively we could come together, and be all those reeds standing together, then the impact would be phenomenal. But in saying that, I think we need to recognise all the amazing work that has been done and is being done. And there's not, like you said, there's not a magic kind of,
Oh yeah, you just do this.
Yeah.
You just do these two things,
Yeah.
and you're all done.
Yeah. And it'll
It's
be
a
done.
journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. It's a journey, right? And we're in that together. It's not. I don't think you can ever stand still and be like, "Oh, that's cool. We've done that." It's the same in any of those spaces, right? You've probably encountered that. Oh, we'll just get Tui Hannah in. She'll do a lunch and learn, and then our people will be thriving. And so you kind of need to think like, I'm going a bit deep here, but I think, and I'm a huge fan of Mental Health Awareness Week. I think, that's why with the Headfit Awards, we're donating a giant, hopefully I'm going to cut the Mental Health Foundation a huge check coming out of the awards to support their work, because they do great stuff, stuff.
Yeah.
But, I think there's a chance for us to go way beyond awareness. I think that's something that Kiwis we're a lot more aware of mental health now, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And now we need to think, what can we do about that? What might we create? And so that takes, I think, intentional design, intentional thinking about how we work, how we connect at work. And I think that's where the real power is stepping back and going, how might we design a healthier way of working? Let's look at the key risk factors for our people and let's listen to them, because you can definitely get some external experts and get the good consulting support, right? I think that's a great thing, but a big part of it is listening to your people, because otherwise you can just run off, buy a platform or roll out a program because it looked good, and then if you'd listened to your people, you would have heard them screaming sometimes that this is what we need. And I think that that's where the real power lies, because what works in your workplace might not necessarily work in someone else's, and vice versa. And so that design thinking, I don't want to talk about design thinking because it's a whole separate topic, but taking a design or systems based approach to improving mental health at work is awesome, because then you can be looking at what are our real risk factors for our people and what can we do about them. And then on the protective side, what's working for our people, and that's never going to be static. That's never going to be, we do these three things. We've got the fruit bowls, we've got the subsidized gym memberships, and we're done. What's working for our people? And then what do they need in terms of capabilities? Because building capability in your people in areas that is going to support their well-being, and addressing the key risk factors, that's like rocket fuel for strengthening the culture and the outcomes in the workplace around mental health and well-being generally.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. I've worked with 2 organisations in particular, with Te Wānau Aotearoa and then with Vodafone, who both won awards for, delivery of their wellbeing. But they won awards because they listened to the voices of what their people were wanting. And with Vodafone, their Manaaki support network, they initiated that. And then when they won an award for that work, they were inundated with phone calls and people wanting to meet with them to set that same network up, in other organisations. And that to me was such a good example of an organisation who had this exemplar program or project. It did exceptionally well, but then just, without any inhibitions at all, just shared up as long and as far and as much as they could. And I think that is a great example of, this kind of sharing and bringing together. Because, and when you talk about workplaces or workspaces, I'm like, yeah, man, because if we all came together and we all made this amazing impact, right? Just imagine that impact that would have on families and on communities, on iwi, on hapu, on people all across Aotearoa. I mean, just imagine that. That would be,
Yeah. And look, like you asked before why I do this.
Yeah.
I do this. I care about mental health at work, and I want to help workplaces improve how they talk about and how they address it at work, because I saw people's lives being changed for the better. And that, the skills, the knowledge, the confidence that you share at work, you better believe that your people, they don't leave it in the office, leave it on the construction site and then just go home. And that toolbox that they've got, like you look at what Mates in Construction is doing.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff. And they are a finalist at this year's Headfit Awards because of the work that they've been doing. Like, they are equipping their builders, their tradies, in a really profound way that is now leaking out. Well, leaking out is probably not the right word. It's like a halo into their home worlds, into their sports teams, into their life away from work. And so that is powerful. That amplifies. Don't just think about the people in your workplace. You might have 50 people or 15,000 people. Think about everyone around them, like Tuhana said.
The ripple effect.
Yep. Yeah, and look, I get story after story after story of that kind of thing. And I think I don't want to take up time with storytelling on here too much, although that's the power of stories. But I think I have personally heard of people who have recognized and intervened in a safe, supportive way that has saved lives.
Yeah.
And they're not experts. They're just a caring person who knows enough to know what lane they're swimming in. They're not primary care. They're not clinical. They're not a counsellor. They're not an ambulance operator. They're just caring and listening and steering and supporting and being a strong bridge to support. But sometimes you don't know what that bridge means for someone. It could be that they're just having a tough time with their finances and it's just totally out of control and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed. Or it could be that they're right on the edge.
Yeah. And I think that, and that's the wonderful, I know that there's themes every day this week for Mental Health Awareness Week. Today was actually connect with someone that you care about. There you go.
Yes. Yep.
But I also think that, just taking that time to kōrero, mā te kōrero ka ora, just to have that chat with people, have that conversation with somebody, ask how they're doing. I think you just need to be aware that if you ask somebody how they're doing, it's like asking, how are you? Then you need to be okay with the response. That mightn't always be, I'm good and I'm fine.
It might be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you also might need to say, I really care about you and I'm here for you. but this is above my pay grade too. Shall we just, why don't we call 1737 together?
Yeah.
Or you can jump on your own, or I can just be there with you. Why don't I
Yeah.
come with you?
And the other
Like
thing
that
is
kind of stuff.
yes.
You're not fixing anyone. You're being a caring human and not putting them at more risk. There's a lot of fear about this topic. Excuse me. There's a lot of fear about this topic, and it can get in the way of us doing anything, and that in itself is a risk factor, right? You're worried about doing the wrong thing, so you do nothing and you look the other way,
Yes.
and that I'm not comfortable with. We need
Yes.
to empower our people, give them the skills that they need to look after themselves, to look out for each other, and to be a great. You're not the support; you're the bridge to support. You're the listener. You're here for them. I think there's immense power in that. But that takes effort to create that capability in your workplace, and to create a culture where that capability can really come to life, right? Because if there's no safety around, if you have an unsafe work culture where people can't ask for help or admit they've done something wrong, or there could be bullying that's out of control, and that's a human problem. My experience with that is that it's a human issue. You bring people together, sometimes they're not going to be very nice to each other. It's how do we bring, like you said, where's the aroha?
Yeah.
Where's the kindness and the humility? How do we get people together? How do we restore their relationships so that they can be better to each other? That there's so much you can do, and it's not easy. It's not easy. It's just dealing with people is tricky, right? We're not robots yet.
What would your recommendation be to leaders? Because sometimes there's an expectation that our managers, our leaders, they have the answers. But often,
yeah.
Yeah.
Lead us.
Yeah.
Lead us, dear leader.
Be the leader. But yeah, I think there's also some capability building that's required around leadership and management.
Yes.
In this space.
I agree, and I think it's not about leaders having to actually be. They don't need to be, like, if you think of a workplace as a bus. Sometimes a very big bus, right? This is the wrong analogy. So if you could fit 5,000 people in a bus, think of a workplace as a big bus. Like, there's all sorts of people with different roles in that bus, and your CEO, your leadership team don't always need to be steering the bus from street to street.
Yes.
They need to be saying, here's where we want to go. This is why we care about this topic. We're putting fuel in this bus, and we're talking to you about what's the best way for us to get there. And we're listening to you because you might just know a shortcut to that destination. And so for me, it's about building confidence so that leaders can take a really strategic view of what great mental health can look like in the workplace, and to get some great support on that. You yourself have provided great guidance to workplaces around what they can do, but not just. I think there's a balance, listening to your people, also being careful not just to completely roll everything, roll your own. Like, there is a tendency to either be like, I don't know why it's so, it doesn't need to be as black and white as that. Oh, we'll just get someone in and they'll do all this for us, which it reduces the chance that will stick and succeed and be really impactful in the long term. Or we'll just do it all ourselves. And so you kind of need to get that balance of, like, listening to your people, building up the capability, getting in some expert support if you need it, so you can really know that you're going in the right direction. And so there's so much you can do. But leaders can help. As I say, you're setting the destination and keeping everyone motivated to get there. That doesn't mean that you're having to have all the exact answers.
I think part of my role is to go into organizations to help them establish certain things, not just with regards to mental health and well-being, but well-being in general. But really, it's about leaving capability within the organisation so that you can step away and they are just good to go, and then they fly.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. What are you leaving behind for your
because
people?
in
Yeah.
my way of thinking, you shouldn't be indispensable. None of us are indispensable. We should be nurturing and ensuring that the organisation that we're leaving is flourishing and continues to flourish. Yeah.
Mm.
So, but I do think, and managers aren't always leaders.
Yeah, sometimes as well, like you can get a great specialist who's done amazing work for an organization, and they get promoted into a role, and they might not be really ready for that,
Mm,
for the
mm,
responsibilities and the skill set that they're going to need. And so that's
yes.
something for all of us to bear in mind. Not to say that you have to tick a whole lot of boxes before you can become a leader, but how do we set up our leaders up to succeed, especially in that, because workplace culture, it lives in your small teams. It lives in
Yes.
your immediate team. Who do I
Yes.
work with and see and interact with day to day, week to week, month to month? How do we treat each other? How do we fly together? How do we fall together? There's just
Yes.
so much
Yes.
there where, the individual team members can make a difference. Every time you add or remove someone from a group, it obviously changes the culture subtly over time. But the leader of that group has such an opportunity there. And that's why I love Mental Health Foundation's got some great e-learning is not the solution to the world's problems when it comes to mental health at work.
Oh,
Let me just
they've
put it
got
out there.
great resources.
It's part of it. It's so accessible. But Mental Health Foundation has launched some free online learning for people leaders called the
Mm,
Open Minds Leadership Program, and it's 3 easy modules. They're about 15 or 20 minutes each. They cover all of the bases that you would need. And in fact, I think even if you're not a people leader, I'm not a people leader in my role. I loved it and thought, oh, every people leader who in New Zealand should do this. So if you want to do it and you haven't done it, it's totally free. Just go to learnmhf.nz. So learnmhf.nz. That's Learn Mental Health Foundation is, I think, the acronym. Great.
Now we're
Good
going to
stuff.
start tying things up, and I just want to know, if you said you've got 30 tickets left, how do people, if they want to purchase those last couple of tickets? Where do they go? How do they get them? How do they read who the finalists are for the Mental Health and Wellbeing Awards?
Sure. So, interestingly, I think sort of 99.7% of the tickets have been sold to sponsors or finalists or people who are associated with the event somehow. But if you're interested in coming along, we've got some amazing speakers lined up. Yeah, 2 lots of live. We've got like a live band running through the night. It's going to be an amazing night. If we can just get to level 1, it will be amazing. So stay at home, wear your mask, get vaccinated, good personal hygiene. Just do it for me. Don't do it for yourself. Do it for me, so I can have these awards. So just headfitawards.org. There's a few tickets left. But yeah, I'd love to see you there. Like, we've already got a few people who are like, well, I'm kind of not a finalist, but I want to hear some of these stories and enjoy that experience. And so the tickets are open now. They're not closed at the minute. So just go to headfitawards.org and you can just buy them online.
I've just got to tell you, just quietly between you and I, that it was an honour and a privilege to be a judge of the Headfit New Zealand Mental Health and Wellbeing Awards. We haven't got too many people listening. I think we can share that.
Just you and me,
yeah. But one thing that really, really inspired me in, reading many of the applications was that actually every single one of them was inspiring. But was the use of many of them wanting to understand a Māori, te ao Māori or Indigenous perspective, the use of te whare tapawha, matariki, te wiki o te reo Māori. There was this real desire. And I think part of that has been the inspiration. And I just want to thank Grant for his support of Huiora, which is the Wellbeing online summit or virtual summit that we're running on the 18th of November. So we were having it face to face, and then we decided, oh no, we're going to run it online. But that's what I found really interesting about a lot of the applications, was this want to understand a more kind of te ao Māori or and Pacifica, actually, Indigenous perspective. Did you find that through,
That was, I mean, I was surprised by that, pleasantly surprised, but also now I really feel like as a country we're getting a bit more comfortable in our own skin, and that means that I can be a third or fourth generation New Zealander, Pakeha, but I can still care about and learn about and apply some of these amazing principles, right? And so Te Whare Tapawhā is a great example. And so I think you can you can have an event that is Māori led, that has Te Ao Māori at the center of it, be practical and inspiring and useful for all New Zealanders. That's not an exclusive thing. So that's what I love. I love the stories that came out of people really trying it on, being really inclusive, realizing that it's not a one size fits all thing. So I love what you're doing with Hui Ora. It's on the 18th of November, yeah?
That's right,
I can't
18th
wait.
of November.
Can't wait.
And looking forward to seeing you there. And head to headfit.org. If you want to purchase a ticket or look at the speakers for Hui Ora, you can check it out on our event page on Woo. You can also go to Woo Way of Life on Instagram and click on our bio, or you can go to Ticket Space. So yeah, check that out. But Grant,
awesome.
You've been a visitor to me a number of times in terms of, we've had a number of conversations, and today it just felt like I was chatting with a really close friend. I think we've become very close friends, and I want to thank you for your time. And
thank you too.
Please pass on our love and regards to Ange and the kids. And it's been lovely talking to you. Is there anything you'd like to say prior to us closing out?
Just for everyone who's listening, just to be okay to just take little steps and take care of yourself. Make a start. Watch what other people are doing in the workplace, and I think we need everybody rowing in this waka.
Absolutely.
Not just a chosen few. If we're going to get to that more mentally healthy future, I think we all need to play a part. That doesn't need to be a giant part. It can still impact yourself, the people you care about, and people around you at work. So thank you so much for making the space for this conversation. I feel inspired by all the speakers that you've had on this week, and actually that having them on the Facebook group, the Facebook site, on YouTube means that I can dive in. If I happen to get a bit busy, it's so good to be able to go back. So thank you for making the space for this Kōrero and these stories. So cool.
It's both a privilege and an honour to have you all featured, and tomorrow we finish off with Rangai Collective, our kaupapa, how to be more proactive with resilient support. We've got some amazing speakers, but really the amazingness of this kōrero comes from the speakers, right? So thank you, for coming online today. And we are all in this together. We really are.
Mahi
so thank
tahi.
you.
Mahi tahi,
I. And
working
so
together
thank you
as
so
one.
much. Absolutely. I'm now going to close this off with karakia. Thank you to everyone that's come online today. And as Grant has said, if you weren't able to catch it live, you can catch it on YouTube or you can catch it on Facebook. And it's always a pleasure, Grant, talking to you.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
I know. My biggest mission is trying to keep the kōrero under an hour with all these amazing speakers. So
you've done well.
Thank
you. Thanks all.
Thank you. Ngā mihi. Let's close with karakia. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa. Te atawhai o tō tātou ariki ahu kraiti, me te aroha, me te atua, me te whiwhinatahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake. Amene. Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora.